Did you wear something special? Sue ran around after you. I would love to see that film.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the feed. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Morning, it's Mike and Marty on the feed. We're here today with David Stern, an old friend, having a little fun before we get started, talking about turkeys and the
Mating rituals.
the mating rituals of
All
the
happening
Vermont.
at Mike Smith's house.
That's right. It's
this
crazy
weekend.
there. It's wild.
Yeah, turkey rave.
Pretty much.
Come
Anyway,
and shake your tail feather.
so here we are. It's April 13th. We're coming up on Easter weekend. Hard to believe.
I know.
Next week is school break. Hard to believe. And then who knows?
We're off and running into
Yeah.
this
So-
thing.
Who knows what
Who
could
knows?
happen?
Who
what can
knows
happen.
what can be next? May,
All right.
maybe May flowers. I don't know.
That's right. Okay, local events with Marty.
So this week at the Bellas Falls Opera House is Sonic Hedgehog 2. So if you missed Sonic Hedgehog 1, I'm guessing you can probably jump into Sonic Hedgehog 2 and be okay. The classic movie is Saturday Night Fever, and that is sponsored by Popolo. And a little bit of TMI personal trivia, that was the very first R-rated movie I ever went to.
Really?
Oh,
And
it's
that was back,
R-rated?
it's R-rated because it was
All right.
scandalous back in the day. And I remember that was when they actually made sure that you were accompanied by a parent or
adult?
guardian. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
who took you?
My brother. It's
Okay.
responsible for all corruption.
All right.
Reminding everyone that tonight is the second public engagement meeting for the ARPA funding and the projects here in town. That's happening in the lower theater at 5:30. So if you have a project that you submitted, you might definitely want to show up tonight. If you're just interested in the process and you want to, I believe the way they're doing it is very similar to the Take Action Rockingham voting, where it'll get whittled down to some main projects, and then people will have stickers, and they'll put stickers on the projects that are most relevant to them. So, yeah, that's 5:30 tonight in the town lower theater in the town hall. And then just reminding everybody about Community Superheroes. That's the Greater Falls Chamber of Commerce event night. They're calling it an evening of impact local heroes community event. It is April 28th at 5:30 p.m. It's $25 per person with a cash bar. It's going to happen at the Bells Falls Country Club, which is up in Rockingham. And if you want any more information on it, go to info@gfrcc.org or call the chamber 802-463-4280. That's
Okay, that's it for local,
Local
events.
events.
The news that's fit to print.
the news that's
right.
fit to print, exactly.
So, David, how you been?
Good. Busy. I mean, it's been a long time.
It has been.
I
It's-
have not been here
yeah.
since the beginning of COVID, so you don't want
It's
to.
been 2 years.
You don't want to hear the entire how I've been story.
Oh, but we do.
No.
But we might hit the highlights.
Say, hit the highlights. I mean, everything shut down. I think it may be worth mentioning. We were 3 days from opening Cabaret at the Opera House.
Yeah.
When COVID really hit Vermont, and we just couldn't, in good conscience, open a 400 people a night packed in a venue event for 8 nights in a row. So the whole thing just closed and never happened. And it's been interestingly impactful on people that were involved. I have people that are in this show now that came to me and said, when we auditioned Into the Woods, said, I just can't take another one now.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
We are now 10 days from opening Into the Woods, and there is this surge of COVID in the area. I have a cast member who is COVID positive, but will be able to be back in the show, and everybody's, we're into rapid testing and masking. When I came in, I was masked. I'm just trying to defend the cast from, nobody can come to rehearsal and be positive, and if we get infected, it's over. So it feels scary, feels really exciting to be back in the Opera House. We've had a really good response. We created a new theater company.
And what's the new theater?
So Wild Goose Players is a new theater company. We're on, I think, actually our 5th show, depending on what you term a show.
Right.
But we did a cabaret with the Bellows Falls Rotary as a fundraiser. We did Year with Frog and Toad, a musical outdoors at the Waypoint Center this past summer. We opened and closed Food and Shelter in Putney at Next Stage. And now we're here with this show. That's all in about 8 months. So it's...
And you have a permanent landing space, too. You've created a home for your...
We have a storefront in Bellows Falls, which is really... it's interesting. I'm sure there are others like this, and I never thought about it. But to have a storefront with an actual window that isn't a store.
Yeah.
It's a place where you prepare things and work on stuff, and people are there, but there are no regular hours, and you can't... has been interesting to interface with the public. We have gotten a lot of people coming in, knocking on the door, saying, "What do you do? Can I do it?"
Yes,
with you.
Well, I imagine that has to be a help.
That's
because-
a huge. It's super positive, and it feels great to have a presence in Bellows Falls. We would like to be in Rockingham as a center of operation. We do plan to keep performing at the Waypoint Center and at the Opera House. And we had done A Christmas Memory, which is the show I forgot, at Stage 33.
Okay.
Yeah, so
during the
you've really
holidays.
hit a lot of the venues already.
Yeah, Stage 33 we hope we can get back into. It's not a venue that currently seems to want to... The management doesn't seem to want to do a lot of rehearsed pieces that require rehearsal time in there and a larger incursion into the space. They're sort of doing musical acts that go in, go out. But we loved it there. We were actually planning, we have a production of Hamlet that's coming up.
Nice.
And we were planning to do that at Stage 33. We like the open environment, and we really wanted to mix in with the audience. Probably going to be doing that at Main Street Arts, which is a nice segue because most of the company, I was artistic director at Main Street Arts.
I remember that.
And that's when all of the Opera House productions started. And I was laid off during the pandemic, and I formed my own company thereafter. And it's nice to be reconnecting with them and to be reforming alliances.
Right. It seems like they're also, I don't know what the right word is that they're sort of feeling out their space and trying to become more interconnected with the community and the other artists in the community. I get that impression.
Yeah, I think one of the ramifications, when I landed at Main Street Arts, I felt like the survival of the institution depended on it biggering a little bit, and that Saxon's River and that really sort of micro community wasn't going to be enough, and we really needed to spread the message and get out. And that, rightly or wrongly, I'm not defending that decision. So we did the Opera House shows, and we did tours to Brattleboro and Keene and so on. I think they're really pulling in again a little bit. Mary Hepburn, who was their mainstay and leader for I think the first 20 years or so.
For a while, yeah.
She really, she taught in Saxon's River, she worked at VA, she had the pulse of the community. Children, Main Street Arts was a real place for children and children's programming. A lot of that programming dried up because there was a Century 21 grant and free after-school programming at schools, so which is great. But we weren't seeing so many of those people coming. So anyway, it's just sort of we feel our way along, and I'm sure Main Street Arts is doing its best to figure out what the new niche is that works.
Right, but I didn't mean that in a bad way. I meant that
I didn't hear it in a bad way.
Yeah, I can't. It seems like the art community was sort of, COVID dealt them a blow. And I think they're coming back together again, and in a slightly different form, and maybe even bigger, because you, like you said, you have your troupe now. You're doing all sorts of shows. They're doing rehearsal spaces and more art stuff. Emmett Dunbar just opened a solo show down on Canal Street. So it seems to me like there is a pretty vibrant level of artistic activity in town. That's not just performance art, but like painting and photography and those things.
I think Bellows Falls has been and seeks to be and is continuing to become a strong artistic community. And I think research shows that there's real economic incentive to build an arts economy, especially in an area that has lost a lot of manufacturing economy and things like that. We have to be a something economy.
Yes, right.
Everywhere that we are. And I think the arts have proven to pull people in. The American Council on Mayors just wrote this whole big thing suggesting to all city mayors that they really consider focusing on the arts as a way to increase the economic vitality of their region. People want to go see something. They want to go do something. Culturally, it brings people to the area, and it makes people want to stay in the area, and it gives them things to do. And hopefully, I'm excited to hear that Popolo is sponsoring.
Yes.
Does that mean that Popolo?
From what I've heard, they're
great question.
This is this question of the day. Their goal is to be open Mother's Day weekend.
Really?
I'm guessing that the biggest hurdle, as with any restaurant, is they have to go staffing from scratch. Yeah.
So Mother's Day weekend, is that the 14th of May or something?
No, I think that's the it's not that weekend, it's the weekend before. It's the 7th or 8th.
Well, I was
something like
dreaming as a person bringing a large event to town.
that they would
That'd
be
be
open.
nice.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. That's another place that we are as a community, is that restaurants, Popolo being, one of the largest in terms of seating capacity.
An anchor restaurant.
An anchor restaurant. That without that, there's Wonder Bar, another great restaurant. It's just very difficult if you have 200, 300, 400 people coming to the area on a night. Finding
A place
for them to feed and water is, at the moment, more challenging. And I'm excited for the return of Popolo.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard. I don't know for sure. So tell us about Into the Woods. Tell us the story behind Into the Woods.
Into the Woods is a fairy tale construction. It seams together a whole bunch of different fairy tales. There's Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. There's Jack and the Beanstalk. There's Cinderella, and there's Rapunzel. And then there's a fictitious baker and his wife story that sort of binds them all. It's interesting, I think, Stephen Sondheim, who died in November, who is he's credited with reinventing the American musical theater and is really one of the giants of musical theater in the world. Into the Woods is one of his pieces, and it's sort of looked at as one of his it's not a weak piece of his, but it's not at the top of the pinnacle of his artistic achievements, which I'm not sure I agree with. I love Sweeney Todd. There's some amazing pieces of Sondheim writing.
Well, it's more whimsical.
But the thing is that it feels lighter. In a weird way, it's one of the darkest musicals that I think he wrote. And with Sweeney Todd, that's
pretty
good.
good.
Saying a lot.
Saying something. But the Act One of Into the Woods is sort of the fairy tales as you know them, done to music. And Act One culminates with Happy Ever After. And they're all going to live happily ever after. And Act Two is what that really looks like. So the princes that have fallen for Cinderella and Rapunzel, married life is more boring than they thought it was going to be, and they start to stray a little bit. The baker and his wife wanted a child. They got the child. The child is screaming all the time. But the real thing that moves Act Two is there was another bean from the beans that went up to the beanstalk. The beanstalk that went up to the giant, and that bean got thrown. and it grew into another stalk that went up there. And the giant, if you remember the story, Jack goes up the beanstalk, he robs the giant, and who chases him down the beanstalk to get back what is rightfully his, and he fells the beanstalk, and the giant dies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the other beanstalk grows, the giant's wife is very angry. And she comes down to exact revenge. And that is really a lot of the driver of Act Two. There's an amazing witch character who was played by Bernadette Peters in the stage musical, and I think Meryl Streep played her in the movie. I didn't see the movie.
Oh.
I didn't see the movie either. Well, that was a recent movie, wasn't it?
A couple of years ago. And they all, everything falls apart in Act Two, and really the show is about what we wish for, what happens when we get what we wish for. Did we really? Was it really what we needed? And what, if not, if many of our aspirations are misdirected or ill-conceived, we think we know what we want to do, but when we get there, we go, Certainly, I think that way about the pursuit of wealth or the pursuit of status, or I see plenty of people. Was Michael Jackson happy? I don't know. Didn't look good from the outside. Yeah. So I think that we then have to wrestle with what is of meaning, what do we want? And I think Sondheim addresses that in an incredibly sensitive. What I think Sondheim, my greatest credit to Sondheim is, we used to sing these songs. They would interrupt the middle of action, and there'd be some little plot mechanism, and it would be time to sing a song, and the songs would be about ideas or love or whatever.
Yeah.
Sondheim writes dialogue music. He writes fights. There's an argument in Into the Woods called Your Fault, where the characters are all turning on one another and going, "You did it. No, you did it. It's when you did this." And that fight, really a very energetic argument, is an example of a kind of writing where you're enabling music speech in a way that you can hear it, where it furthers really the dialogue instead of stops the dialogue and time for a song. And I think that's remarkable. So I invite you all. We are, one of the challenges of Into the Woods is that it's, it's a fairy tale on the big stage. So there's a tower for Rapunzel where the witch locks her, and we go into the woods, and we have bakers and ovens and giants and
Beanstalks?
And beanstalks.
Oh, I can't wait to see the beanstalk.
That have to
I'm
grow
very
and
excited.
so on like that. So there are a lot of technical challenges, which we typically like. It's been food and shelter in Putney was also a real technical challenge. So we're tired, but we're excited, and then we get a big break at the end of this one. So
Yeah.
Because you're not doing Hamlet till the summer, right? Correct?
yeah, and Hamlet's going to be very pared down.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, by we get a big break, maybe I mean I get a big
get a
break.
break.
I'm not directing Hamlet. John Haddon, who is really a Shakespeare scholar and a founding member of Shakespeare and Company in Lenox, Mass., and has spent much of his life, he's a professional equity actor and director. He is taking on that one,
nice.
and it's really exciting for me to be able to pull back and build a little this and that, and
not be
take
the
on the
not be the
whole
man in
nut.
charge. That's nice.
Well,
I'm
you seem
excited.
very energized and excited, though. So I think that's a good thing.
Good. It's caffeine. It's
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited as always to see your productions because they are top notch. The set and the scenery that you do, I have no doubt that it will be fascinating to see all of that, how you were going to work it on stage. I've seen, as I've gone into the town hall a couple times, the door's been open, and I've seen like
bits and pieces.
of the set, and it's going to be an amazing
I
set.
will-
And interesting to have that insight as to the. I didn't really know too. I mean, I knew it was. I've seen it. I knew it was about fairy tales. I took it at face value, but I will watch it with a different lens from
Oh,
what
I
you,
think
from what you just
he's
said.
very clear. When you hit Act 2, something is happening that didn't happen in the fairy tales I read. I will also say, just technically, Liz Gazinski is doing our costumes.
I've seen that you had them in the window at
Yeah,
the shop. They're
they are
amazing.
Stunning. And when I get worried about the scenery, I just say to myself, they're
But
not
the
going to be
costumes.
looking at the scenery. These costumes are incredible.
Yeah.
And they are the kind of in-scale statement for the Opera House. These the choices are bold, and I'm really excited. And Liz is just a consummate artist. She accepts nothing but her very best and really the very best. They're all sewn. They're not glued. They're not. Everything is hand
Oh my
done,
gosh.
kind of old school. And are they all built? They're not all built from scratch, maybe, but almost.
I saw a jacket that you had in the window. It looked like it was heavily brocaded and just very time.
That is actually, again, one of our seamstresses, Louise Connor. These people, they just come with these gifts. I think I have to say the most amazing thing about founding Wild Goose is the people who come and they just come and they just work. Like, not just for an hour this day and then an hour in 2 weeks or next week, but 8 hours a day for 2 months.
Wow.
I don't know what motivates them, but I don't want to. I don't want to
Yeah, you
worry
don't
about
wanna
it. I
Yeah.
just
stifle
want
that.
to, say thank you very, very much and keep going.
That's great.
I believe that we don't do too much together that's magic. And by magic I mean that stretches us beyond the norm, where you turn around and you go, I can't believe we did that. I think that's a driver for some people.
Oh, yeah.
I think when you can sit back and go, remember
Yeah.
that? Did you see
Yeah.
that thing? That may be what drives me,
Right.
actually.
And you may be answering your question that you had before, is what do we strive for and what do we get? Maybe striving for excellence in magic is more important than
Yeah,
money.
and connection.
And
I'm going to
connection.
throw connection in there
Yeah.
hard and long.
Nope,
I
I
believe
agree.
that that's what's in the text of Into the Woods. There is this song. It's probably the most. It's called "No One Is Alone." It's probably the most often sung piece from Into the Woods, and there, I think it comes near the end of the show, and I think it's pretty close to the point.
How are ticket sales going?
I don't know, which is so great.
There you go.
I've normally I control the ticketing system, and I can't help myself. But RED, the institution of the Rockingham Entertainment Development Organization, and them taking over ticketing for the Opera House, has let me not think about it. And I'm excited because I get addicted once I start checking.
Then you're always
Oh, you check it all the
always
time,
like,
yeah.
what did we do this hour?
So we have about 2 minutes left. So let's actually talk about that. What's the best way to get tickets?
The best way to get tickets is to go to the Bellows Falls Opera House website. I think it's...
Yep, bellsfallsoperahouse.com.
Look at that, bellowsfallsoperahouse.com. And you can just go to special events, and it's right there.
It is. So I checked it out yesterday because I was looking to see, figure out what time and what night to go and where I like to sit. So it's a super, super easy system, I think.
Yeah, I think they've done a great job,
Yeah.
and Charlie Hunter has been a great resource for both this organization and the community, I think, over
Yep.
time. And
Yep.
it's great. It makes my life much easier. And we hope we actually, as of yesterday, this is worth announcing, I think, I went to 4 shows that are mask optional and 4 shows that are masks required. I'm trying to make everybody comfortable, and we're all comfortable in different places. And it'll be interesting to see how those fill, but I couldn't figure out how to please all those people in the same show.
In the same show, yeah.
So we just broke it up, and with 8 shows, it seemed like you could
That's
go
reasonable,
see your pick.
So we are down to 40 seconds, so
I would
Welcome.
just encourage you to come check it out. There aren't that many things that we do as a community. I mean, this whole thing is made by people that live around with us in Bellows Falls, in Putney, in Ackworth, in Keene, and they all come together to make this thing for 3 months, and it's worth checking out.
definitely worth checking out.
And I think that's the time we
That's
have.
the time.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week, and
Bye,
bye,
community.
community.
Peace out, lovely community.
News, politics, business, sports, arts, music.